All set.
I'll call the North Smithfield School Committee meeting of December 19, 2022 to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Lombardi,
Present.
Mrs. Mayo. Here. Mr. Connell,
Here.
Mrs. Vada,
Here.
Mrs. Bartolomoli, here.
We have a quorum. Let's move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, I'm honored to present Mr. Jones with the plaque. If I could see you up here, Mr. Jones.
Directly to the podium, please. There we go. Just wait for it. The beauty shot's coming. Yeah, nice.
So, Mr. Jones, I'll read it. In sincere appreciation for your dedicated 6 years of service to our students as a school committee member of the North Smithfield Public Schools, December 2022.
You want me to say?
Well, that's up to you. Let me.
Still works.
So, Mr. Jones, obviously served together for 6 years. I want to thank you for your support and your counsel during that time. You're a great asset to both the school committee, school department, and myself. Thank you.
All I'll say is it's been an honor these past 6 years. You've all been terrific. Ms. Bartolomoli, you're going to do just fine with these great people next to you. So thank you all. So that's it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
I'll move on to, is it public comments? Anybody want to make any public comments? Community comments? Nobody on Zoom. Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have the consent agenda in front of us. Does anybody have any questions, concerns? Want to take anything off?
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
don't want to take anything off. I just have one question about one of the items, if I may.
Sure.
Superintendent. Again, just because it's come up, I'm sorry, Superintendent, I didn't mention this to you before, but it's an easy one. On the homeschooling request, I just, by law, we have to absolutely grant them, and I have no problem with us doing that. I just always wonder, because it's been raised by other parents before, are we doing, I always just want to make sure that we're making sure the kids are actually, we're being homeschooled, but it's still our responsibility, are meeting certain criteria. And do we still have a, can you comment on that in terms of the checks and balances we have on that? or-
We really don't have much authority on that.
I understand.
It's a state process. They do furnish some information to us at the end of the year, but it's really not our place to approve or dig into the curriculum and the day-to-day instruction that they're receiving.
That's fair. Mr. Chair, I just mentioned, because it's always a concern of mine, but as the superintendent said, I realize that the law is, they certainly have, everyone has the right to homeschool if they wish. I just worry about, I'll leave it.
Any other questions or concerns? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Moving right into reports, Superintendent.
Just going to quickly share the screen.
Sorry about this. It tends to cover up everything that I need. Move this out of the way. All right, so the first thing I just want to touch on, and this is a follow-up from my enrollment report last month. And, basically last month I had reported that our population, student enrollment actually grew slightly over the previous year. And this is a trend for the past couple of years that we've been seeing, is that our enrollment has stabilized, whereas previously there was this sort of continuous decline. We stabilized, but we did get the report in from NSDEC. And so if you take a look at our K to 12 enrollment over the past 10 years up until this year, we started at 1694, went up to 1717. And the past few years, 1604, 1539, 1584, 1582 has been relatively stable. Now, this doesn't include our PK kids. So we have more kids than this. They're just reporting on K to 12. However, coming up, the projections are that we will be continuing to increase our student enrollment. And that is largely through, we have young families moving into North Smithfield, where they're projecting an increased birth rate, which will then eventually hit kindergarten and first grade. Plus, we have a lot of new housing residents. We have home sales, we have apartments, we have more residential properties for people. So we have a lot of families moving in. So they're looking at the trend is going to continue, that our enrollment will continue to increase. But one of the things that I do want to point out, and this is also in the budget piece. So this chart right here, and I'm looking at this green line with the diamonds, that is the projection for our elementary population. All right, and you can see our elementary population based on the new families moving in, based on birth rates. We're going to see it at the elementary school as the wave rolls into the middle. High school, I'm a little surprised with their projection. That's the gray. One of the things that I need to find out, I need to check, is that our CTE enrollments have increased dramatically this year. So we have more non-resident students coming to North Smithfield High School paying a tuition. So that right now we have 23 students. This year alone, 17 new students enrolled in our CTEs at the high school. Right now, if we continue that trend, that's going to offset these numbers here that NSDEC is projecting out. But one of the things that I also really want to draw attention to, especially at the elementary, and again, this is just K to 12, so we're looking at the elementary, the K to 4 level. This isn't factoring in universal pre-K, which is scheduled to begin in 2028. So we're actually looking at NSES is going to have a tremendous swell in population. And right now, NSES, it's pretty full. It's our biggest school. And I just want to point this out as we move further. The enrollment projections are slated to go up, and this doesn't even factor in finding space for universal pre-K. Right, so again, just a bookmark. We'll talk about it during the budget cycle and over the next couple of years. Now, that 2028, that is, I don't know if it's definite or if it's aspirational. There's not really a single funding source. I mean, there are some pieces that are built into it to help, but we're talking teachers and space, and also universal pre-K can include daycares in other areas. It's not all just on us. So there's still a lot of balls in the air right now for this one. But it's certainly worth having in the back of our minds and really looking at over the next couple of years. the impact that this is going to have. All right, so,
Question,
yes,
do you know how this is relative to other districts, like a lot of other sort of suburban districts being higher?
I
projections
haven't
than,
compared the other districts, but the surprising thing is that overall, throughout the state, our enrollment is down. K-12 enrollment is down across the state. North Smithfield, I don't know if this is a suburban thing, a rural thing, or an outlier. But North Smithfield is an attractive place to raise families. And we're seeing it in the enrollments, even this year. Over the summer, there were so many enrollments happening over the summer that our office admin staff had never seen anything like it. So it's very positive, but it's also something that we need to be planning for.
Quick question. When you say the town, are they talking because of NeighborWorks coming in and doing Tupperware? How are they projecting?
There is, one of the things that I do furnish NESDEC are the list of the new constructions, the residential areas that are planned, being developed, or, planned on the road. So they do look at that. We've had, it was, what's that? What is the apartment complex that Jen was telling us about? I'm drawing a blank on it.
I think it's NeighborWorks, the old Tupperware.
Yeah, that's not the one I'm thinking. No, I'll have to look it up, but we have, Jen Dano, principal at NSPS, was saying that a lot of the new enrollments were coming from, this apartment complex.
Well, there's Marshfield, which is affordable housing,
Is it Marshfield?
could be, which is
Yeah.
in Slatersville,
Okay,
near Marion Lowe,
yeah, I think,
in
okay.
backyard.
Yeah.
near backyard.
And the other piece that we have, and that was in my last report, is that we have a number of students, a lot of students actually returning from charter schools. So the Mayoral Academy, we have a lot of students who families tried out the Mayoral Academy and wasn't quite working for them, and they came back to NSCS. In fact, this year in October, we had 18 students come back to us from previously, they were in charters. So. Yeah, so the other piece, now this is in your packet, I'm putting it up on the website for everybody to see. It will be included, as part of the budget discussions as well. The other piece that we just want to touch on are some major changes that are coming up at the secondary level, specifically high school. So this is the new graduation requirements, and some things are already in place by law, other things are going to be phased in. But we wanted to take a moment to share the components of this. And again, some of it is aspirational, some of it hasn't quite been defined yet. But it is a direction that the Department of Ed, the Board of Education, and reinventing high schools is going. So the first one, our kids will by default be expected to take the academic coursework to graduate high school with the opportunity to enroll at URI work after high school. Now, Claire is going to talk about the specifics and what that means, because there are some changes to the credits and the courses that high school students will need to take. I'm just going to go through the big picture first. Our kids will receive information on transitioning to college, career, apprenticeships, and military. Our kids will receive support for completing the financial aid paperwork that will reduce the cost of post-secondary ed. Now, Bill Pepin does a nice job with kids and families on the FAFSA, but it's a piece that's going to have to be embedded, as well as career counseling, military, alternate paths other than just college. Our kids will receive support. Our students will graduate high school having a resume to help gain employment. Our kids will graduate proficient in civics, They will be proficient in financial literacy, in computer science, and the arts. Our high schools will develop policies to award academic credit for work-based learning. So work-based learning isn't a CTE thing anymore. This is for everybody. Now, again, through our senior project, we already do a big component of this. So our high school is already a few steps ahead. But we are going to have to formalize the work-based learning in addition to other coursework. RIDE will support the development of flex credit, so teachers have the opportunity to design rigorous and meaningful interdisciplinary learning experiences to support the passions of our kids. Not a bad thing, a very difficult thing to get past college admissions and set up. Personally, I like it that we're not necessarily at high school so locked in departments into separate silos of academic disciplines. It's good to have that cross-pollination and look at things from multiple lenses, but that does take a tremendous amount of planning and training and work to create. Plus, it also has to count for colleges, and the colleges right now in Rhode Island are really pretty, I don't want to say limited, but they're very direct. It's very A to B. There's not a lot of room for creativity or flexibility, which is one of the things that, we're looking to change. And then priority 3 here, let me get rid of all the things that are in my way. No, do that. Nope. Pick that up. No. All right, I'm gonna make it up. Our kids who are caregiving youth and students who work will have the flexibility that support them to pursue their academics while supporting their families. What this means is that, and again, it's going to be very difficult to make this work, but we certainly do have students who have to take care of their little ones while, a parent or parents aren't available, they're working third shift, so we have middle and high school students who take care of the little ones to get them off to school. We have high school students who have second jobs, not to afford video games or pay for their car, but to actually contribute income to the household. This whole piece is designed to have the flexibility for those students who are providing childcare, are creating income for their household. So things like a simple thing, like a student who is always late to school because they have to get their little brothers and sisters off. Well, they're saying there has to be flexibility for a student to come in late. There has to be flexibility for somebody who needs to leave early. So again, it creates that scheduling piece, so to have that flexibility for students who work, students who provide childcare. Our schools will publicly establish criteria to measure the academic progress of students and supports being provided to kids. So everything that a kid does, volunteers for, any work study programs will be tracked, and part of that college and career readiness that annually will be reporting back to the parents. How this is part of the individual learning plan that one of the reasons our budgets went up in technology and in the schools is because of the software for the individual learning plans, which is used to track a lot of this, to create that student resume, to help with the FAFSA, to put in your goals, your aspirations, and the coursework that it takes to get there, plus your outside activities that have helped. And then the last one, because students will receive flexibility in their schedules to participate in high impact academic courses. So they don't necessarily have to take courses in North Smithfield. They can take courses elsewhere. But it will still count. I'll give an example for this. My kids went through Cranston High School, Cranston East. There was a language requirement. Now, my daughter was also studying separately Japanese, and she took the National Japanese Proficiency Test up at Northeastern University, and it's given all around the globe, and it's by the Japanese government, and she scored she passed the test at the first level. She passed it at the second level, but that didn't mean she didn't have to take Spanish when she was in high school. So this is the other piece. We need to open up for these additional opportunities for students, to pursue things that maybe we can't offer internally. So, but again, it's a heavy lift. It's a lot of planning. It's a lot of scheduling. And we're trying to do it with the same amount of staff that we have, maybe with a few adjustments. But the specifics or what it means at the high school, and, look at you, Claire, you got it, I didn't.
So this is basically just a quick reference, this, the new secondary regulations were passed in November. The Department of Ed will be giving us district guidance. And so, as it comes out, we will be sharing it out with you. But this is just a real quick reference. And if you can see on the left-hand side in gray, it says current Rhode Island secondary diploma requirements. And then right next to it, dark blue, is the updated proposed Rhode Island diploma requirements. And if you kind of scan down quickly, you can see that there's some changes. There's really no changes in English and the math. There is a change. The students have to have 4 credits, like they used to have to, in order to graduate. But now that includes algebra 2. So in the past, our students could take algebra 1, geometry, and 2 related mathematics courses and be able to graduate. But now it goes up to algebra 2. And so that is definitely a shift. And in science, the shift is including lab sciences. However, that's not going to be a shift for us because within our courses, we do labs. So our chemistry class that students do labs in will literally just have to change the name to chemistry and then lab in parentheses. So we're already meeting that requirement. The history and social sciences will stay the same. There'll be a civics component, which is a new law that passed, but we already have that embedded. So there's, we're in a really good shape. The world of language is new. The majority of our students do take world language, but not all students will take it. And these requirements will show that there will be two courses, 2 credits of world language. And the additional college prep unit, I don't know exactly what that is just yet. Arts, computer science, physical education, and health, which we already meet those requirements. And so the total credits will remain the same, 20 credits. It's important to know that there will be a way for students who are not on the path for a 4-year college, and they do not want to take world language, for example, that they will be able to be on a readiness path. And so this is really the default path. I think the idea of it, from what I'm gathering, is that the Department of Ed didn't want the default path not lead to a 4-year college. And so basically they took the Rhode Island colleges, Rhode Island College and University of Rhode Island, said, what do you need in order to be accepted to these colleges? And then they built backwards from there. And that's where they put the credits in. But there will be opportunities for students who do not plan to go to a 4-year college. They still will be able to graduate with a high school diploma. They'll be on a readiness path, and we'll actually hear more about that as it comes out. I don't have the information, so that's still being built. I would say definitely the mathematics is a significant change for us, and I think that, for the algebra two, and that will definitely be a shift, because not all of our students will necessarily go up to algebra two. And there's also, quite a bit of flexibility, and I think anyone who's worked with a high school schedule knows that there's not a lot of flexibility, and so I think that the Department of Ed is trying to give us some flexibility, and so, I'll give you an example of that. We have, the financial literacy and computer science that students will need to graduate with. Credits in that. However, students could do that in middle school. So we could offer some middle school courses, and that could show up on their college transcript. So in the past, that's never been an option where a middle school class would show up, on the high school transcript. And so we are at the moment, we're just trying to, understand the differences, the changes, and start planning. And so we're working with the Northwest Consortium, and that's Cumberland, Lincoln, North Smithfield, Barville. And the first meeting was with assistant superintendents, and then it was assistant superintendents and all of our principals together. Just, reading the documents and seeing where we are and how we're going to get there and how this affects our students and our offering. The next meeting we had all the guidance counselors from all the districts together with their principals and superintendents, and assistant superintendents. And so we have another meeting coming up in January. And so as this unfolds, we'll definitely keep you updated, but it's brand new. And so we're trying to figure it out ourselves and see how it really will impact our offerings and impact our students and both.
I have a few questions. So I reached out to you concerning this. That next meeting, is that also open to the public?
So
Or
it's
no?
not.
That is
That
now
is just-
done?
Our next meeting is our guidance counselors and our principals meeting together, reading the guidance, discussing the interpretations of it. So that's it's not a public.
Okay. As far as the computer science, what does that entail? Because I know my kids had to do it. But we opted in order to open up a schedule spot for them to go to CCRI and take it. But then the high school didn't want to accept that yet. It was a college credit. So is that an option?
So that would be an option. And I think that goes with the flexibility. You can take courses at CCRI or Rhode Island College and get credit for that. And that's the idea of this. But we also will be offering computer science. We offer.
Okay.
within the
Is
high
it
school
necessary when they're working off of Chromebooks and everything else? What are they learning in computer science that they haven't learned in order to operate this? Is it a waste of a class?
I don't know that just yet, only because I have to read all the standards. Honestly, there's a lot that has to do with like Excel spreadsheets and things of that nature. So I don't, sometimes you think computer science and you think coding, but it's actually more navigating computers. So we're going to figure that out, because one of the things is we could put it at the middle school. We've had classes like that at the middle school. So if it's once we know the standards a little bit better, we'll know where we can place it. And maybe that's a requirement our students can do within the middle school.
But we still have to have something at the high school for students who moved in.
No, and I
from other
understand
districts
that.
don't have it, but-
I think
And
the
we offer
issue,
computer
And we
science
do.
at the high
Right.
school already. Of
But,
course.
but a lot of it is what we're trying to protect at the high school with all of these additional requirements is the students have space to do a CTE, the students who have space to do 4 years of music, students who have, to have space to do what they want to do as opposed to fulfilling graduation requirements. So, there's some creativity in this. That's why we're
well,
looking
that's
to
why I
move
asked.
a little bit into the middle school to give the kids at the high school some room to do some cool things. So,
No, I agree. I agree. That's why I was just questioning if they could just take the class in the summer.
Right, and those are things that.
It's a 4-week program.
Yep.
Will the high school accept it? Because at that time they said, well, it didn't give us the full credits.
one of the big differences with these regulations is that it's not about seat time. I think in the
Okay.
past, it was about seat time, how
Right.
long students were in the class, where now it's about the standards. Have you been able to meet the standards? And so you get the credit for it. And so it doesn't necessarily be every day for 180 days. Or maybe
For example, we have students who are already proficient in a foreign language because they moved here or their family speaks it. They can test out of the foreign language requirement. If they show the proficiency in the language, they're not going to be forced to take 2 years of a different language. So again, that's some of the flexibility that they're trying to build into this as well. And that goes back to my daughter. She wouldn't have had to take 2 years of Spanish because she was fluent in Japanese.
And I do want to point out, I think this is what, 2028 implementation? So there's still a lot
There's
that
time.
needs to be worked out,
Yes.
even at the Department of Education.
Right.
And we're saying, what is proficiency in civics,
Mhm.
right, or financial literacy? There's a work group that's kind of trying to hash all that out as we speak, so definitely a lot of unknowns.
So it's our current seventh graders. However, there are a couple of laws that I think are prior to that, and that would be the financial
Financial
literacy.
literacy. We have to do that now.
So that's where we are. When we know more, we can share. But, we're just starting. We're just starting to get to know what the regulations are and see how it works for us and how it will work best for our students and serve us.
But, and the main thing too is that we don't want to wait until the seventh graders hit ninth grade and we want to phase all of this in starting next year. So the information we have, we just want to start phasing it in so that the transition is smooth, it's natural, and it's been thought out and tested. And we're comparing a lot of plans and possibilities with the other districts around us, so there are quite a few heads working on this. You know, and then also, you know, the student voice in this and the parent voice in this, and, you know, so as we rolling this out, everybody understands, have their input. A lot of things we did, for example, for the investment of the ESSER funds came from parents and teachers, and what is it that you need for your students, you know, let's break this down, and that's what we follow through and invested in. So. Great, the end of the show.
Busy.
Anything else, Superintendent?
Unless you'd like me to talk about other things, we can move on.
I would just like to say congratulations on the virtual instruction letter that came our
Yes.
way. It was a lot of work, I know, so thank you.
Moving on to, the informational portion, personnel resignations, retirements, leaves of absence, and appointments. Anybody have any questions?
So we have a few people we'd like to highlight who
Sure.
are retiring. And Suzanne, would you like to come up and embarrass? Yes, please. And I want to zoom in. Yes, afterwards. Let her do the show, then you come up.
Well, I want to start by just saying this is a very difficult thing for me to do, say farewell to someone who has become a very dear friend, and she's a hardworking woman who's done a lot for our district. And hopefully I can get through this. I want to start by giving you some of her background because it's pretty lengthy. Andrea began working in North Smithfield back in October of 1981. I don't want to even tell you how old I was. She was 22 years old, and she had only worked in Smithfield for about a year and a half prior to coming here. Her first job was educationally evaluating and reevaluating every child at every school in the district. Back then, there were four or five schools. and it was every student in every school in the district. She was also teaching students, attending evaluation team meetings. After 25 years, she then moved on to become the special ed department chair of the old junior senior high school before the middle school was built. She was evaluating and reevaluating children from grade 7 through age 21 before it changed to 22, and chairing the evaluation team meetings. After 3 years, Andrea became the district-wide evaluation team chair, also known to everyone as Team Queen. 9 years ago, she also added early childhood coordinator to her already position of team chair. I have had the distinct pleasure to work alongside Andrea for the last 9 years. I can tell you with a certainty that she loves children, and she most especially loves our children with special needs. Andrea has been their advocate, their voice, and their champion. Her focus is and always has been the child and how we can best meet his or her needs. Andrea not only brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table, but she also brings passion, sensitivity, and sometimes much needed humor. She can quickly put any parent at ease with a simple gesture or her great smile. I am sure that her next chapter in life will somehow include working with children, because Andrea will never waver from her roots. When you start your career with passion and you end your career with that same passion, you are always drawn back to your roots. North Smithfield has been truly blessed to have Andrea sitting at the table, making the decisions for our children. She will be missed but never forgotten, and she has left her mark on our district. I would like to end with a quote from Steve Jobs that depicts and exemplifies what Andrea Carey stands for. The only way to do great work is to love what you do. And we love you, and we will miss you. Now you can come up and say.
This is hard for me. I've had a lot of health issues in the past few years. And I bounced back. I have my mother's old Irish broad grit. And, but it's time. Somebody said to me, "You'll know when it's time." I said, "I'll never know. I'll never know." And, yeah, I know it's time, but it's not without hesitation or tears or this is all I've ever done. I'm 64 since I was 21 years old. So, and most of it has been here. And I've seen an awful lot, been through an awful lot, so many changes. But I can tell you that now, these are the best teams I've ever worked with at both the elementary school and the secondary level. It's really hard to leave them. It's hard for Suzanne, who has supported me all these years. When there were a few years where I wasn't so supported. So I'm just truly grateful, but I really, it's hard. It's like I said, and thank you for everyone's help and support. And thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
We have another person retiring who's been with us for a very long time, Renee Gerton.
Renee Burton, I was lucky enough to meet Renee 16 years ago when I began at NSPS. She was actually one of the first people I met. She's been in our district working for 32 years. She, the large majority of her years have been we're at NSPS as a special education teacher, but most recently she's been a guidance counselor at the middle school. She has a sunny personality. If anyone knows Renee, she has just a calm demeanor. She's always happy. She's just an incredibly kind person. She's impacted all who come her way. She helps anyone in need. She's always ready to lend a hand, and she will be certainly missed, and we absolutely wish her.
So also,
we have to say goodbye to Carol Quintola. She's been with us for several years as the only English teacher for English language learners that we have, which I have my master's in ELL, I taught ELL, and I am just floored by Carol and what she has brought to the district, has brought to the children. We were looking for an ELL teacher several years ago, and just like many positions, this is very difficult to find somebody who can fulfill the need. And especially in North Smithfield, where we really needed somebody who could support our English language learners from K all the way to 12. That certification doesn't exist out there. But Carol came in out of retirement. She used to do some sub working with us, and we loved the kids and loved the teachers. And we asked her, would you like to come out of retirement? And she did. And despite all of the health problems that she has had also, she's there every day. She absolutely loves and adores the students and is one of the most genuinely good people I've met. So it's difficult to say goodbye to her, but again, you know when it's time, and it was her time. But again, so she will be very missed as well.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Sorry, if I could just say,
Of course.
this is really sad for me because we have had so many retirements lately of people that I and my family have had involvement with over the many years that we've been involved in the school systems. And I hope that they all realize how important they have been to the success of North Smithfield students and the community. And we will definitely miss everybody. Andrea, thank you for coming here tonight. And thank you for everything you have done for my family. And as I say, we've just had so many retirements so far this year, and they've all been such wonderful people.
And one of the things I forgot to mention about Carol, when she came on board, we had 9 English language learners across all the grade levels. We're up to 27.
Oh, so good luck, happy, healthy retirement to everybody.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to old business. Lisa? Anything to report?
Just wrapping up the one and everything, well, you'll get your letter.
Okay, no findings? Okay. Anybody have any questions? Moving on to new business, budget subcommittee appointments by chair. I was thinking of Ms. Bottomoli, Ms. Johannes, and myself, unless someone else would like to get in. With those three, obviously, we have experience. Ms. Bottomoli on the budget committee for the town. Ms. Johannes has been on budget subcommittee a number of times, as long as, and myself. And as you know, we can't put 3 committee members on because you'd have a majority in the subcommittee. So that's why I made that choice. If you have any questions or concerns?
Yeah, I think that putting Terry on is a great idea. Because I was on it before, and I thought that's a good way to go.
Good job.
Great.
Yeah, and Fran, of course, is a great asset. I mean, Fran has a great asset for the committee as well, and the entire team. You know, Claire, Lisa, Alicia, obviously all make it easy for us.
Right. Great. Moving on to item number 2. So I know, is this, one of these 2 is not a request for increase, it's just request? Is that the next one or the 2 or 3?
Both.
Oh, both. All right.
Yeah, so
So Superintendent, do you want to just explain? So there's no increase to the budget, right? Or-
well,
We're gonna cover it within the operating budget.
We'll cover it.
Okay,
Yeah, so we do have the funds to cover it, and we'll take them, number two, then number three. These were requests going into the budget for next year, but we have a significant need this year, and we have the means to make it happen. So, the two teaching, instructional assistants for our most needy kids at the middle school and the elementary school to be in that classroom. I believe we have, are they one-to-ones or are they going to be classroom? Classroom. It's needed, very much so. So that's why we're coming to you this year and say, can we just add these positions now instead of trying to get through the year and then put them into the budget next year?
Can what grade level at the elementary? Are we starting them, like, is it a first grade class and they will follow through as they move on, or?
So Suzanne, why don't you come up and explain the LBC room?
At the elementary level, we have we have expanded to two LBC classrooms. So we have one, Jamie Austin has K through grade 2, and then Deirdre McDonald has grades 3 and 4. And then we have a middle school and we have 2 high school classrooms. So the IAs that we're looking for would be one in Jamie Austin's room. She's up to 10 students. Some are extremely needy and have been returned from parent-placed outplacements, not school-based outplacements. And the other is for the middle school. And middle school, we're in a situation right now where we have a student who requires a one-to-one. We've been unable to hire someone, and we're paying quite a bit of money to Momentum, which is the agency we contract with, to have someone with this student. So our hope is that when we bring on a classroom assistant, that classroom assistant can somehow work with those students that require one-to-ones and maybe help provide some additional supports, so we don't need this person full-time, because it's very costly to my contracted services line right now. And it's helpful to have that now to be able to transition the students. Right now, our 2 high schools are pretty stable. Those 2 classrooms are pretty stable.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
any further questions? So, Superintendent, do you need a motion or do you have authority to do this without us? Hiring?
Yeah, but it's outside of the budget.
Okay.
So, I'm thinking that maybe you have to approve it. Because this isn't a budgeted
All right.
position.
So, motion to add an additional, I'll entertain a motion to add an additional instructional assistant in the LBC room and an additional school psychologist for the middle and high school.
Oh, you jumped ahead to the second one without us
Yeah,
even
I'm
talking
taking a
about
vote.
it.
Just to understand, you're looking for
All right.
2 positions, right?
Right,
Two.
yeah, right now it's
I was trying to-
2 instructional assistants.
I was trying to be a
for-
little
for this
efficient.
line.
All right, so we'll just do the first one.
We can
I'll
talk
entertain a-
about number 3 if you wanted to take it all together.
We'll just, all right, so I'll entertain a motion to, add, is it 1 or 2 additional instructional assistants?
2.
2?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 instructional assistants in the LBC room at the elementary and middle schools.
Second.
Well, motion. Entertain motion.
Oh.
Motion.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to item 3.
Okay, item number 3, this is another position that we were going to request for next year's budget, but we feel an intense need to move on it sooner than later. So we have a school psychologist at NSPS, and we have a school psychologist who is splitting the middle and the high school. We need a psychologist in every school. And we also have the high school psychologist will be taking a medical leave at the end of the year. So we would like to bring this person on now. First of all, I hope we can find somebody. These positions are unicorns out there. But we would like to bring the person on sooner than later to also work with a high school psychologist before she has to leave for a little bit. And so there'll be a continuity with her caseload. And then going into next year, this person will become the middle school psychologist.
Great. Any questions?
And we'll still have the one at the high school. So there'll be
Yes,
one
so
in
now
every
there'll be
school.
one in each.
Okay.
Right.
Of course.
I do have a question on this one, Superintendent, just, have, you think this is, can you just address briefly why you think this is more viable than, say, outsourcing, they just.
Oh,
bringing a contract-
absolutely. So we have, first of all, we get more bang for the buck when we have somebody locally as opposed to paying a contracted service. And secondly, and I'll tell you, our caseloads for our psychologists and social workers are higher than they've ever been. We've had more emergency referrals this year than previous years, and these emergency referrals are often accompanied by hospitalizations or clinical evaluations afterwards. We were talking earlier before this, things are difficult out there for a lot of people, and the students are feeling it, and the social, emotional, psychological burdens for some of our kids have really reached that breaking point. And we need to have more people we can partner with these students and their families in school.
Quite sure this is around the state and around the country.
Absolutely, yes.
Running these things.
Mhm.
If I may just stop real
Of
quick.
course.
So the only reason I was asking that was because of what I don't dispute or even, I'm not gonna argue with the need, it's clearly there. The only thing I was wondering is that we have one and we're a part-time person. I just want someone to the value to just, let's say we outsource and bring in or even, a particular person would outsource. And one particular student a couple of students interact well, but just didn't connect with that psychologist. It, they can send them maybe to somebody, just having, if you outsource, so you have more options, I would say. Because a lot of it's personality driven, and you've got, you know what I'm saying? In other words, it's saying,
Yeah.
let's say it doesn't work, you have something that don't work with the psychologist. So not because of psychologist fault, just because of personality and the needs of the student.
And there are other options. I don't know, Suzanne, if you want to address that.
I don't want to belabor the point. I just.
No,
I like-
it's a good question.
I want to speak to the outsourcing because prior to our psychologist coming on board, we had a psychologist who had her clinical license.
I'm gonna-
So that was very helpful for us because she could do clinical evaluations, not just psychological assessments, which are IQ tests. Now we have to outsource for those clinical evals. They're roughly for one eval, it's about $3,000. So if you take that into consideration, and we don't outsource unless we really have to, but we've already had to do 2 or 3 this year, 2 so far this year. So that's $6,000 just to outsource for evals. With the school psychologist, and I hear what you're saying, Bill, if the child doesn't necessarily get along with that psychologist, we also have a social worker who provides counseling. We have our guidance counselors who meet with our 504 kiddos or meet with our regular ed students. So there are enough adults for that piece of it, but the school psychologist is essential to do our evaluations. The evaluations are through the roof. Our new referrals have gone through the roof since COVID. And they're the only ones, them and a social worker who can do a risk assessment. And our risk assessment numbers have gone up drastically since COVID. And it's very, very sad. And it's from the elementary school all the way up through the high school. And that would be costly. And to keep up with that amount of risk assessments, it would be impossible to outsource for that, to bring people in there aren't any. And we did actually use an agency and when we had someone on leave, and it was horrible. And we called the agency and said, can we have another school psychologist? They sent us a second person. It was just not a good fit. Like, we would have the opportunity to interview, to really make sure that they're a good fit for our student population. And I think we did a great job with Maria Corsini, Maggie Bell. They're phenomenal people.
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to add an additional school psychologist for the middle and high schools.
So moved.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Is there any further business?
I have a question.
Sure.
Because I'm new. And I missed because actually Peg and I, with the consent agenda, the medical marijuana policy.
Yes.
So it was drafted by our solicitor.
Yes, it was.
Has it been reviewed prior to this meeting?
This is the first reading.
Okay, are we going back to this or?
No, we've passed it, but, there'll be a second passage,
Yeah,
Second reading. then.
second reading.
that'll be a second reading. yeah.
You can change it.
Okay,
All right, so
Yeah.
in the future, just take it off, then we can have a separate discussion.
okay, thank you.
Is that okay?
Again, this is coming up, it'll be the second reading, so that's.
Yeah, and if you have things to change on the second reading, we can pull it out and then resubmit it for a third. So until everyone's satisfied with it.
All right, thank you.
And if you have any legal questions, maybe if you want to send them to the superintendent in advance, and you can ask
Okay,
Ben, or you can ask Ben, or however, whatever's easiest.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
No, and Chair, also just to point out, maybe just to add to that, too, once the issue is, once we vote on something, to change that to meeting, we run also potential open meeting violations. You have to be very careful about that.
And I think I just reading through and as I read through this, I'm thinking, all right, that's separate, but it's part of the consent.
Consent agenda, so you just pull it off.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any further business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. We're adjourned.